September 1st, 1943. Rabaul Airfield, New Britain. Commander Saburo Sakai's hand froze over the intelligence report. His single good eye, the other lost to American gunfire in a brutal dogfight a year earlier, scanned the page. Then, inside the humid, suffocating operations tent, he laughed out loud. According to US Navy intelligence leaks, the Americans had introduced a new fighter aircraft. The reports described it as heavy as a bomber and wide as a cargo transport. Its name sounded almost theatrical: F6F Hellcat. To Sakai and the battle-hardened veterans around him, the description sounded like proof of a fundamental Western design failure. Through the flaps of the tent, under the pale Pacific light, Sakai could see his squadron's Mitsubishi A6M0s lined up neatly on perforated steel planking. They were elegant machines, light, agile, almost ethereal in their maneuverability. For 2 years, the Zero had been the ghost haunting the skies of the Pacific. It humiliated British Hurricanes, shredded American P-40S, and wiped out Dutch Buffaloes with ease. Every challenger had fallen. This bloated American experiment, the Hellcat, would be no different. Or so Sakai believed. What Sakai didn't know, what no Japanese naval aviator present at that morning briefing could possibly imagine, was that this so-called design mistake was about to begin the systematic, relentless annihilation of Japan's naval air power. The Hellcat wasn't coming to duel, it was coming to redefine air superiority through brute force, industrial power, and advanced technology. The mathematics of war were about to change. Japan had perfected the art of individual combat, precision flying, acrobatics, the romantic ideal of the airborne samurai. The United States was building something entirely different, an industrial war machine with wings. American pride wasn't rooted in tradition, it was rooted in steel, horsepower, and firepower. The F6F Hellcat was the physical manifestation of a nation that, after Pearl Harbor, had made a decision. Not just to win, but to dominate the sky absolutely. At the heart of the Hellcat was the Pratt & Whitney R2800 Double Wasp, a radial engine producing 2,000 horsepower, nearly double that of the Zero's Nakajima engine. When Japanese pilots encountered the Hellcat in combat for the first time, the shock was paralyzing. They were used to dictating engagements. Now they faced an aircraft that could ignore tight turns entirely, simply pitching its nose upward and climbing straight into the clouds, vanishing in a vertical ascent no Zero could follow. From shock to terror over Marcus Island and Wake Island, Japan's best pilots tried their traditional tactics. They attempted to lure the Americans into turning fights. The Hellcat pilots refused. Trained in energy superiority doctrine, the American pilot dove like a hawk, reaching speeds that would tear the Zero apart, then climbed back to safety before the enemy could even line up a shot. The Hellcat's dive speed was terrifying. It was as if gravity itself had chosen sides. Where the Zero was a delicate blade, the Hellcat was a steel sledgehammer powered by a rocket. For the first time in the war, Japanese pilots realized something horrifying. They no longer controlled when the fight began, or when it ended. The Hellcat ruled time and space in the Pacific sky, a wall of American firepower. The terror didn't stop with speed. The Hellcat's armament turned air combat into execution, while the Zero carried two 20mm cannons with limited ammunition and light machine guns. Hellcat mounted 6.50 caliber Browning M2 machine guns, 3 in each wing. Together, they unleashed over 4,500 rounds per minute. Against the Zero's lightweight duraluminum frame, a .50 caliber burst was catastrophic. Where Japanese pilots needed precision and patience, Hellcat pilots needed only a brief squeeze of the trigger. Wings shattered, fuel tanks exploded. The legendary Zero became a fireball in seconds. Japanese pilots began calling the Hellcat the Widowmaker. Facing that American wall of lead was statistically suicidal. The American difference, survival, what truly broke Japanese morale wasn't just lethality, it was resilience. The Hellcat was built by Grumman, proudly nicknamed the Iron Works. It carried 212 pounds of armor protecting the cockpit. Fuel tanks were self-sealing. The windscreen was bulletproof. The psychological contrast was devastating. A Japanese pilot knew one mistake meant a burning death. An American pilot, protected by his machine, could afford to be aggressive. Documented Hellcats returned to carriers with hundreds of bullet holes, missing wing sections, and damaged engines, yet still brought their pilots home alive. Every rivet reflected American industrial pride. The United States wasn't just building weapons. It was building flying fortresses, seeing the enemy before he could see you. The Hellcat didn't fight alone. It was part of a networked war system. Carrier-based radar and fighter controllers guided Hellcats directly into blind spots of Japanese formations. Japanese pilots were attacked from above and behind, without ever seeing a glint of metal on the horizon. "We were blind, fighting enemies who could see in the dark," one survivor later wrote. High-quality radios allowed Hellcats to operate as a single organism. While Japan still relied on lone warriors, America fought as a coordinated industrial force, a war machine where every part knew exactly what the others were doing. An assembly line of victory, the Hellcat's production was something Japan couldn't even comprehend. At the Grumman factory in Bethpage, New York, American patriotism became metal. Workers operated 24 hours a day. At peak output, one brand new Hellcat rolled off the line every hour. Even if Japan scored a victory today, the US Navy would replace every loss tomorrow. The F6F wasn't just an aircraft. It was the symbol of an awakened industrial democracy that had claimed the Pacific sky as its own. The Marianas Turkey Shoot, June 1944. The Battle of the Philippine Sea. Admiral Ozawa launched Japan's remaining elite air forces in 4 massive waves. He believed skill and courage would prevail. He was wrong. Hellcats, positioned at superior altitude, descended like executioners. By day's end, 346 Japanese aircraft were destroyed. American pilots called it the Great Marianas Turkey Shoot. Hellcat pilots became aces in a single afternoon. The Zero legend died under .50 caliber fire and overwhelming speed. Desperation and collapse. The psychological collapse was complete. The fear of the Hellcat gave birth to the kamikaze. If the Hellcat couldn't be beaten, Japan would try to bypass it with human sacrifice. Even then, Hellcats dominated. Armed with rockets and K-14 gyro gun sights, they slaughtered suicide attackers over Okinawa before they ever reached the fleet. The kill ratio told the final story, 19-1. The Hellcat produced 305 aces. The final realization after the war, Saburo Sakai, the man who laughed in 1943, watched Hellcats land on Japanese soil. Up close, he understood. This wasn't just a bigger airplane. It was the future Japan failed to foresee. Power, protection, precision. The embodiment of a nation that valued its warriors enough to give them the strongest armor science could forge. The Hellcat didn't just defeat the Zero, it broke an empire's will to fight. Those who laughed at the beginning ended the war in silence. The roar of the double wasp was the sound of freedom restored. And the Hellcat, sovereign, unstoppable, became the ultimate symbol of American air power. Not just a hero of war, but the architect of victory.